right? And the broader topic of toxic masculinity, healing generational and childhood traumas, especially among men. So this morning, while I was researching articles for tonight's show, I stumbled upon two articles that struck my fancy. One was an article about last night's Blackish episode on colorism, which was spectacular, by the way. And we're putting together an amazing panel of women for tomorrow's show to talk about colorism. So hold your horses for that. But for today, I found this Gillette commercial that is totally causing a stir amongst the male folk, and most folk, if I'm honest, all over the world. It briefly explores toxic masculinity and imagines a world without the parroting of boys will be boys. And you know exactly what I mean. Little boy does something, oh, boys will be boys. Little boy is harming someone, oh, boys will be boys. All the rough housing and the you know what I'm saying? Like, boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Grown men, still now and today, there are grown men that still have this mindset. Boys will be boys. And then what do? They have boys and raise their boys. Boys will be boys. So there's no accountability. There's no consistency. My guest in here, Greg Corbin, is in here right now with me. And we were talking briefly about being consistent. And if you want to know why so many men are single, look at how they show up places. And that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I'm going to say about that. The one that's married is here. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, so that whole boys will be boys mindset about everything. And then the commercial dares to imagine a world where men stand up to each other, and for people in general, and they stand up to rape culture, right? And ultimately, the way the commercial is phrased, the best that men can be. You know how Gillette is like the best a man can get for shaving? Do you use that?
Yeah. I don't use it. Do I use Gillette? I think I've used it before.
Okay. Well, the idea is the best a man can be, which sounds dope, right? Well, everybody doesn't think so, and so that's part of the reason why this show is going to happen today. Since toxic masculinity is a theme that keeps coming up, like it came up last night, it came up last week on Tuesday when we had Larry E. in here playing the guitar. We just had a, you know, we were riffing, having a conversation, and toxic masculinity came up then too. And I'm sitting here like, okay. And men are talking. It's not like women are going. These are men that are bringing it up in conversation. Is it a catchphrase now? You know what I mean? Like I've been in feminist, womanist circles. It used to be the think piece phrase. Now it's something different. So what I was able to do, and you know, I'm giving everybody a break because this really was a top of mind last minute thing. I woke up this morning. Aubrey had an orthodontist appointment, and for whatever reason, I got a download. You need to talk about, you know, I got to see this, and it was like everything was happening quick, so I was making calls quick. I was on my phone, you know, I was doing the thing. You available? You around? Call, you know, doing all this stuff. So we put together an awesome panel. Some folks are going to physically be in the studio. Some folks are going to be calling in from all the places that they are. I understand that this is hump day. Folks are trying to get it in, whatever it is, you know. So the married man is here. The single men are out trying to get it in. We'll see. So who we have in the lounge tonight is Al Butler, who is a radio and TV journalist and consultant. He's going to be calling in at some point. Of course, he used to be Just Greg. He's now Just Greg.
I was always Just Greg. People just took it and made it something else. And I was like, yeah,
he used to be Just Greg, but now he's Just Greg Corbin.
No matter how much I correct people, I can't get away from it.
He's an award-winning international educator. He's a poet. He's a motivational speaker. He's an activist. He's a humanitarian. We've been friends for years and years and years and years. We were on HBO together. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were doing all of that stuff. Yeah, Greg Corbin is here, and he's the married one. Okay, I have to say that again. Will Mega, who is a political strategist and a motivational speaker, he's going to be in to kind of give his perspective. Will has an interesting way of phrasing things that I think is going to be powerful between the two of you. And we also have spiritual practitioner. He's a teacher speaker from Agape International Spiritual Center, Jason Mitchell. He will be lending kind of the I don't want to say therapist, but you know, in a lot of these conversations, we're talking about trauma, and we're talking about healing, we're talking about up-leveling our thought process. There's always kind of like that voice of reason in the conversation. And so Jason adds, I don't want levity. It's but not funny, haha. It's like it's like raising the vibe, and you're gonna add that too. Yep. Just I know I promoted that Kevin Carr was going to be here, but he had a last-minute thing to do with work, so he will come back for another show, he said. So like I said, don't judge folks too hard, because this was a last-minute thing, and I appreciate that, you know, listen, tell God your plans and watch him laugh. Watch her laugh. Anyway, so we still have an awesome, amazing show. We're gonna do my job, and what my thought process is, I'm going to take a few paces back and let the gentlemen talk amongst themselves in the lounge. So the thought process was, you got your cognac and your cigar, and you guys are, you know what I'm saying? Is that stuff that happens?
Yeah, we just have honest conversations. I think the people we put together is going to be a very fluid, honest conversation with a lot of great insights.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the challenge around this all is like a lot of this is connected to gender justice in a lot of ways.
Gender justice, that's good.
So like women have been fighting for years, and it's like only but so long you can oppress someone or, you know, people in general as a collective before that slingshot comes back with all that tension. And I think it seems like the pendulum has swung so far. The pendulum has swung so far to the left.
Yeah.
It's now everybody's like walking on eggshells. You know, it's people at work like, whoa, I'm not even meeting with another, the person of the opposite sex or a woman in general. Which
is so weird to me. And before we get too deep in this, because we are kind of waiting for Will to come in, but we're going to get started because we only got 2 hours today. But I want to put the phone numbers out there, 215-634-8065. You can call toll free, 866-361-0900. Also, have you downloaded the app yet? The WURD, have you? I'm looking at you right now. I mean, you're out and about. You're getting ready to go out. You're in the gym. You're doing whatever. Your life would be easier if you had the WURD app. They have one for Android and Apple. So we can, you know, pedal back and forth about which phone is better. Just have the WURD app, and you can listen wherever you are. So that being said, I love where you're going with this. It has to do about the pendulum has to swing back. You know what I'm saying? Like there has to be balance. It has to.
It's going to balance out. I mean, I think accountability is funny. People often talking about accountability, and then the moment when it shows up at the door, and this includes me, it is challenging to accept fully. I think there are so many moving parts missing from the conversation, though, because the comfortable part is to say we are here, we are now, we're going to deal with the issues now. But when
are you talking about for men or for women?
I'm talking about everybody, right? Let's just talk about trauma in general. When you talk about trauma, you have to get to the root of something. If you've been going to therapy, you have to get to the root of something. You have to deliberately be intentional about doing your own homework. Think about it. We go to school for 12 years, right? We graduate with a high school diploma, and this is not everybody. I don't want to generalize, but let's just say for people who have dived into education, you graduate, 12 years, diploma. You go to college, if you're blessed enough, degree. If you're blessed enough, you go get your master's, another 2 years. Let's just even stop at the master's. Let's just stop right there. That's 18 years of education about something outside of you. You haven't even begun
any work on yourself. Yes,
you haven't at all.
We don't know. And Iyanla, we talked about this because we played a clip. I believe it was yesterday where Iyanla Van Zant was saying, "We throw our kids out there, go play the ball,
right?
You know, go." Part of how R. Kelly was able to, we'll just say, perpetuate this thing for so long was that, you know, you have parents who don't know how to navigate through these businesses, and you're in a circumstance where your child is really talented and everybody can eat if this child would go out there, you know, and make some money, buy mama a house. And what's interesting about that dynamic is there's no spiritual preparation.
Nah.
There's no emotional preparation.
Nope.
Nobody even has that to be able to give it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even a part of the dynamic of what we do with our kids, because that's not a part of how we raise ourselves. Church is, and I'm not coming at church neck, but it's not what I'm talking about here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about church. I'm talking about realizing and recognizing that spirit is bigger than Sunday.
Exactly.
Is a core precept of existence. You are a spiritual being having a human conversation. That's not really debatable. Get what I mean? So if we're spiritually prepared, emotionally prepared, wow, yes, okay. You don't have none of that, but you're going to go out and dribble that ball. You can go out and catch that ball.
Well, once again, what's the deeper issue at hand when people exploit their children? What R. Kelly has been able to do, perpetuate that cycle for so long. I saw the tape in college. It's disturbed then, and ever since then I've been pretty much off R. Kelly. And not to say I've been 100%. I ain't throwing a no hitter either, because certain songs come on, you like, tag,
right?
Like, you know, the dude is that talented, and so the question is, like, yeah, that's one segment of that person. That's one part of his identity. It doesn't mean he doesn't have the ability to love. It doesn't mean he doesn't have the ability to be a caretaker, but it does mean he is mentally and psychologically diseased in a way that is extremely disturbing and causes damage in the community, because in some cultural practices, yes, a young lady may, at 14, they may be ready for marriage, but that's a cultural practice. We can talk about the tribes in Africa and certain places in South America, but we're talking about an American context, and in America, there is a certain gap in age when a young woman is developing mentally. She can't handle that relationship. But then I want to stay on topic, but I just wanted to bring an example in. We watch it with the AAU. In the basketball, we see people bend their entire family development around one kid who can play basketball, shoot a basketball, dribble a basketball, and that's the ticket out.
That's it.
And so we're talking about capitalistic vulturism on a whole nother level that comes from people being in situations that are challenging, at risk, vulnerable, impoverished. When you're trying to figure out a way out of that, you're willing to take these risks that unfortunately may compromise the upbringing of your child and cause more damage in the community. And he's been able to capitalize off of that, because not only is he in a position of power, he's in a position of financial power. Yes. And financial, and not just that, social capital along with that.
Predatory. He's a predator.
But there's so many people around the dude that have been like pretty much allowing him to do it because they were attached. That was their payday. And so, like, a lot of this is just a lack of integrity.
Listen.
Like, just it's sad on so many different levels. We can stop the show
right now. Mic drop. We're good. Lack of integrity. Thank you so much for stopping by.
That's why, like, watching it for me is disturbing, because it's like we've been new, right? And then you think about the justice system, and you're like, well, what do you charge him with, right? Because if you don't get nobody over, like, under 18 in the moment, then it becomes very gray and very, unfortunately, easy to manipulate yourself.
I need a lawyer to call in, because I feel like it's not that gray. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I'm
saying legally.
Legally, if he started with them when they were underage, right. That's where the crime. It doesn't matter how old they are now.
Well, now it's a statutory thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how long is the statutory? Yeah. The laws.
Any lawyers want to call in and help us answer some of these questions?
So
we have to go to break. We have to go to break. Put a pin in that. Will Mega just stopped through, so that's beautiful. So the conversation is about to pick up. 215-634-8065. Those are the call numbers. The Facebook Live is on. I'm going to go over there. I have to physically go over there and look and see what some of your comments are, so that you can, you know, I can respond to what you're saying on the. Or you want you're looking at me crazy. I haven't seen it so long. And then also, we're on YouTube Live and Periscope and something else. So there's lots of things going on here right now. 215-634-8065. We're talking about toxic masculinity. And fellas, I would love it if you would take the reins of this conversation and allow me really just to be the moderator here. You know what I'm saying? I have questions. I'm going to throw the questions out there. You guys can answer. You out there who are listening, you can call in and answer the questions. Let's have a dialogue amongst men. The visual is you got your cigar and your cognac and your snifter, and you're having up-leveled. I'm joking, Will Mega. He's looking at me.
I'm just listening. I just got here.
His facial expressions are like, I'm sweating.
You almost blew. I really was going to go get a cigar tonight.
Were you? Were you?
Cigar.
You're listening to The Lounge on WURD 900 AM, 96.1 FM. My name is Envy McKee. We'll be right back.
Listen to Word Radio on the go with the Word Radio app. Search for WURD in your favorite app store today and take us with you wherever you go. Stay connected to Word Radio, independent black media.
In Philadelphia, everyone is reading and talking about this year's Free Library One Book, One Philadelphia featured selection, Sing Unburied Sing. Jesmyn Ward's National Book Award-winning novel is a haunting and haunted American road trip through Mississippi's past and present. Young adult and children's youth companion selections include Ghost Boys by Jewel Parker Rhodes and Last Stop on Market Street by Matt De La Pena. One Book, One Philadelphia features programming for all ages through March 13th. Details at freelibrary.org/onebook.
Listen live at wordradio.com.
1 in 3 adults in America have pre-diabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Years 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mom my. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse pre-diabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
Since I did all the work. Hey Slim, you should be nicer than you are sometimes. You take that complaining shit way too far. I mean, I thought it was cute in the beginning, but now I think you only do it 'cause you know I hate it sometimes. You got me wishing I didn't have home training sometimes. Then it wouldn't hurt me so bad. When I dream of knocking you in your head, then it wouldn't hurt me so bad. When I'm kissing, I would put up your ass sometimes. Wish I knew life with no pain. Wish I held the key to this game sometime. I pretend 'cause I'm afraid to be sometimes. I hope I live to see 25 sometime. I wish I could be like Moses, round up my people, move out the ghetto, and live a better life. Sometimes I wish I didn't try so hard. Sometimes who knows truth anyway? Down of nothing. Who needs their approval? The sun is in your hand, player. Move at your own pace, listen to your own mind, do your own thing. Yeah. I'm saying it because I love you, and I wanna go with you, baby. But you wanna run any other direction, so I got to stay on my path until I win.
We're gonna let it play out because this is Bilal.
Like the 5-spot reunion.
It is right. We talked about that last night.
Every word to
Welcome,
that song.
right?
That
Welcome
song,
back
man.
to
It's
the
straight five.
lounge.
That was 5 spots.
Yes.
I was in the 5 spot.
Can y'all?
I was barely
Your
in
mics
there.
are on. I'm about to shut your mics off. Thank you. Respect my
Femininity.
authority.
All right, Mom.
Welcome. I am somebody's mother. Welcome back to the lounge. My name is Evie McKee. DJ Frosty Phoenix will be here at some point in the studio. I have Greg Corbin. Oh my Lord.
Just say, you can say just Greg at this point. I don't
Can I?
Yeah, just say it.
We have Just Greg in the studio. Poet. He's an activist. He's amazing. He's an educator. All of the
Writing
things.
books.
Writing
stuff like
books. All the things. We have Will Mega, who is in the building. Yay, he's a political strategist. He was. Which one were you on, Big Brother?
Yes,
He was
original.
He was the original cast member
I'm
of
the
Big Brother.
granddaddy of reality TV.
He's
Truth
the
be told.
granddaddy of reality.
Granddaddy.
Don't say that too loud.
Huh?
The show is we skewing younger. Let me finish.
Granddaddy.
So-
I'm the first Negro to ever argued on reality TV.
That's the truth.
Ever.
Wait.
No.
He wasn't even born.
No, Jesse Jackson was because
that wasn't
sometimes
reality
elections
TV.
are
Okay.
reality TV.
The reason why these two brilliant gentlemen are in the studio, and I also have to mention at some point, Albert Butler is going to be calling in. He is all of the things. Journalist, thoughtful person, and also Jason Mitchell from Agape International Spiritual Center. He's going to be calling in too. All the reason why these gentlemen are in the studio is because we're talking about toxic masculinity. It's come up in so many of the conversations that we've had already on this show, on the air. The last 2 weeks I've been here. This is my second week here, and my 5th day. And almost all of the conversations, somehow, toxic masculinity comes in to play. And it's amazing because I'm not necessarily the one that's bringing it up.
So, Ken, I walked in 5-10 minutes before you started. That's another way of saying late, right? So
The doors opened at 7.
here's my question. Has anyone defined what it was and who gave it its definition?
I would love for you to, yes, I would love for you to go there. But before we do that, I want to play where all the reason why this conversation came up. It was a Gillette commercial that they just, and we all know who Gillette is, right? The shaving, the razors, the best a man can get. I don't personally use them, but I hear they're great. I hear it's a great shave. So shout out to Gillette.
I actually do use Gillette.
Do you?
I do. Triple blade mop.
And so
actually, that's what I know.
That's what I use.
I got the triple blade mock too.
The triple blade mop,
when
baby.
you go bald, it's like,
let's go.
So this is the commercial.
I've been using Gillette triple blade mop for over 17 years. I need to check.
I saw Will at a basketball game. I said, "Do you shave against the grain?"
I've been giving out shaving techniques.
Too. It's like never, always with the grain.
Always with the grain.
No. This way. Yeah, keep talking. Why'd you stop?
I mean, you know, I wanted to, you know, acquiesce.
Gillette is a healthy masculine item.
So
okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Can your audience hear it?
Is this the best a man can get?
You should play here.
Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy? What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says
and there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men,
and small.
I am strong.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
You know we have dead social media air right now. Can't hear it. Social media can't hear it.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Frosty Phoenix is okay, so that's a commercial. That's what all the hubbub is about. I thought it was powerful when I saw it. I was like, I caught a little tear because, you know, that's the dream. There's a part in this where you see a whole bunch of boys that are running around being boys, right? And they're running through causing havoc, and nobody says anything. That's where the whole line of men behind their grills, which is a stereotype. Do you ever notice on Father's Day when when they're promoting Father's Day, it's all about grills and sausages and whatever? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm just listening.
Okay, so you had the whole line of men behind their grills. You know what I'm saying? Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Parroting, and that's what it looked like. They were just parroting the thing that you say when your boy is being. You get what? Do you understand what I'm saying? So those are the optics.
So that's why I asked the first question: who is
I don't know
defining the term?
Since you do that. Hold that. Since you're doing, you're right. That's layered and it's packed. And the reason why I did not define the word toxic masculinity, the point is, can you define manhood?
And so I'm glad.
So if you start there, what is your definition of manhood, and then we can talk about what's toxic, what's going on.
So I think where we should start though, when we use these broad brushing terms. It was rest in peace, rest in power. It was Dr. Amos Wilson who taught us that power is the ability to define reality and have others respond to your definition as if it were their own. In other words, if I can define something, and as a result of me defining it, I can determine how other people act due to my definition, that's power, right? And so where am I going with this toxic masculinity? What we have seen is that it means that males are misbehaving and being sexually inappropriate and disrespecting women, and none of that is good, right?
So to answer your question, toxic masculinity is a term used to describe normative masculine behavior in Western society associated with behaviors linked to dominance, misogyny, homophobia, and violence. The origin, according to the Advocate, toxic masculinity may have been coined by psychologist Shepard Bliss during the mythopoetic men's movement in the 1980s and 1990s to describe a type of masculinity caused by a repression of deep masculinity. The earliest known mention of the term in research can be found in Michael Kimmel and Amy Aronson's 2004 book, Men and Masculinities, a social, cultural, and historical encyclopedia.
So your boy, you know, I do my homework before I come in, right? And so here we have white men who have recognized that other white men have been oppressive to white men, white women, and people globally. So toxic masculinity is synonymous with global white supremacy. They just said it there themselves. Will Mecca didn't define it. You just read it, right?
No, I understand what you're saying, but if you look at the behaviors, if you look at the behaviors of men en masse, when I asked you, what is your definition of manhood, can you answer that?
Absolutely.
Please do it right now.
So manhood is one who is working to be in harmony with oneself. Who am I? Am I who I am? Am I all that I ought to be? That's what Frantz Fanon puts forward to us, right? That we should always be asking ourselves those questions. Who am I? So it takes me back to my history, and we look at the great pyramids in ancient Egypt or Kemet, and it says to know thyself. And within self is God. And am I a reflection of God or not? And so I'm constantly working to be one with God, who has the highest spiritual principles. And guess what number one is? Uplifting and upholding.
Maybe I should have asked this a different way.
This is the most important. The most important aspect of being one with God is uplifting and upholding the black woman.
Thank you, because you're right. Now, maybe I should have asked this a different way. Greg, how would you define manhood? In a personal sense. Like, I loved your philosophical answer.
That's not philosophical. I'm going to try to make it as practical as possible.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to say, one, being emotionally available.
I picked the right people because they're not answering the question.
I'm also going to say being aligned in your authenticity.
Yes.
In spirituality.
Yes.
I won't even say fear, but knowing how to be responsible and accountable, reflective, and constantly in pursuit of growth. But I also think that is a human duty.
Yes.
In adulthood also.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing. Like, for example, I'm not perfect in any way. I hit a door, right? Broke the door, right? And that was definitely not my intention. But I wasn't in control of my full self, right? My emotional capabilities and all that. What I did was deemed as toxic, right? It's a behavior that evokes chemical reactions.
Yes.
That's because I have a biology degree. So when we say the word toxic, to me it means something completely different. I'm actually going to go into the science of why something is toxic.
Come on.
It's toxic because it creates a chemical reaction inside of you. It creates hormones that are unhealthy and work against your body, right? And at the same time, the other part of the toxicity that falls into the relationships of the collateral damage that you can cause in those moments, shattering certain relationships, shattering the relationship which you have with yourself, that's the part that is toxic. But if a woman does the same thing, is it deemed toxic?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we don't language it that way, though. But to answer your question, yes.
Let me put some common sense into this whole thing, because I'm a person of balance. When I hear masculinity, I think femininity. So then I think toxic femininity, what does that look like? right? But if masculinity is a thing of force, right? Or it's the thing, like when you think of masculine energy and feminine energy is giving, masculine energy is usually assertiveness, right? So if somebody hits something, that can easily be deemed as just a masculine behavior, and therefore it may be deemed toxic masculinity.
Well, I would also venture to say, if we're going to be honest, that they are...
Are you suggesting that he wasn't honest?
No.
Okay, just check.
God.
Just checking. Just checking. I hear that all the time. Right after you say something, if we're going to be honest.
Because what happens is,
disqualifying your points.
What happens is this, right? Like Will brought up a good point about what Amos Wilson said. Rest in peace, Dr. Amos Wilson, right? He brought up a great point about what power looks like, what it can be. And they created a definition, and then it somehow filtered down through agenda after agenda into a zeitgeist of thinking. And now we arrived at a moment when it's in the collective consciousness of everyone, because we have social media, we have interface conversations, and now it's the hashtag, i.e. the subconscious thought, or the thought that's just dancing in the back of everybody's head. Because what happens is it's easier to control a populace if you control the flow of information and somebody's controlling the algorithm.
That's right. The world is held together by our agreements and our conversations
and our
about those agreements.
Right.
Absolutely.
And shout out, I was just going to say, like, they brought up the Me Too movement. I just want to say I'm very proud of Tarana Burke. And, you know, she was in Philly for a while. And she's done a great job with how she's starting to maneuver it more towards the healing aspect.
Yes.
Because you can attack all you want, but you're not addressing the
wound.
You're not addressing. And with the other thing, and this is the last thing I'll say.
We're going to break. Okay. You're going to come back. You hear the whole show.
All right. Well, I didn't want to lose the point, but the dehumanization of black people on this continent. The dehumanization of black people on this continent. And that is everybody who suffered from slavery. Yes. We're still dealing with the wounds genetically before we come here.
Yes.
And when we get here, we inherit the things through socialization. Yeah. So I'm going to stop right there.
You're not stopping.
Toxic masculinity. When a black man is constantly under attack. We have yet to be a whole man here. We started out as 3/5 of a man. We talk about toxic masculinity. Can I just be a man?
866-361-0900. We have Just Greg in the building, Will Mega in the building, Jason Mitchell will be calling from L.A., Al Butler will be calling at some point. Get in on this discussion. It's not just about toxic masculinity, you're right. It's about power dynamics and the language that we use and we choose to that perpetuates the problem. 215-634-8065. You're listening to 900 AM 96.1 FM WURD. My name is Envy McKee. Frosty Phoenix is back. We'll be right back.
Don't miss The Source.
Weekdays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
on Word Radio.
WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
At Dietz & Watson, we've spent over 75 years focusing on the details. This can be traced back to our founder, Gottlieb Dietz, who learned how to make franks and sausages the right way in Germany. Today, each one of our delicious offerings is meticulously crafted using perfected details. Because if it isn't good enough for our family, it isn't good enough for yours. To us, the details make all the difference.
Support independent black media and join the Forward movement now at 215-425-7875
or visit wordradio.com.
In honor of the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Global Citizen presents the 24th Annual Greater Philadelphia Martin Luther King Day of Service, the largest King Day service event in the nation, Monday, January 21st at Girard College. You are invited to volunteer in one or more than 1,800 service projects at Girard College throughout the day. For more information on the Day of Service registration process, call 215-851-1811 or visit MLK Day of Service at globalcitizen365.org. Join the movement and engage in a day of service.
This is Kyle Ingram from Peyote Vision. Shout out to Jay Brown and DJ Ideal Boyfriend, and you are listening to The Lounge on WURD.
I think back to my father. There was a time in my life where we had a very troubled experience in our family. My brother Henry, he died tragically when we was teenagers. We lived in New York City, as I said. We lived in the Bronx at the time. And the burial was a place called Long Island. It was about 2 hours outside of the city. And as we were preparing to come back from the burial, you know, the cars stopped at the bathroom, you know, let folks take care of themselves before the long ride back to the city. And the limousine empties out. My mother, my sister, my auntie, they all get out, but my father and I stayed in the limousine. And no sooner than the women got out, he burst out crying. He didn't want to cry in front of me, but he knew he wasn't going to make it back to the city. It was better me than to allow himself to express these feelings and emotions in front of the women. And this is a man who 10 minutes ago had just put his teenage son in the ground. Something I just can't even imagine. The thing that sticks with me the most is that he was apologizing to me for crying in front of me. And at the same time, he was also giving me props, lifting me up for not crying. You know, I come to also look at this as this fear that we have as men, this fear that just have us paralyzed, holding us hostage to this man box. I can remember speaking to a 12-year-old boy, a football player, and I asked him, I said, how would you feel if in front of all the players, your coach told you you were playing like a girl? Now, I expected him to say something like, I'll be sad, I'll be mad, I'll be angry, or something like that. No, the boy said to me, it would destroy me. And I said to myself, God, if it would destroy him to be called a girl, what are we then teaching him about girls?
Right. Powerful.
Welcome back to the lounge. My name is Envy McKee, DJ Frosty Phoenix. We have Just Greg, Will Mega in the building. We are talking about this Gillette commercial that we played before the break. And then it kind of evolved into the language we use. We defined toxic masculinity because that's the catchphrase. And I'm glad we did that. That's a good thing to unpack. You know, figure out where it came from and why we're using that phrase. And so maybe now we can use a different phrase, one that suits what this is. Because Greg talked when we first got here about balance. I do believe there's a divine feminine and there is a divine masculine. And when those things are balanced, our relationships look different.
In harmony.
In harmony, not only with ourselves, in ourselves, with each other as human, spiritual beings having a human incarnation, but with the planet. You know what I'm saying? A lot of what's going on here is imbalance. Can we call it imbalanced masculinity?
Well, maybe we can call it white supremacy.
Well, that too. And so what you just heard, what I just played, that was from Tony Porter's TED Talk. It's called A Call to Men. And I'm going to post it in the Facebook Live. So those of you that may or may not have been able to see it, you can look at it as your leisure. It is a brilliant talk. And so when you hear me say things in conversation, like I have done many times, Man Box Island, I'll say male people on Man Box Island. Now you know where that came from. I didn't define the term Man Box Island. Like, Tony Porter, and he did not originate the term man box. He was just able to package it and he's a black man. And some of his story is so crazy powerful. And even though I may not have personally, I don't know what it's like to be a man. And I know what it's like to be a human being, and I know what it's like to love black men. You know what I mean? So that's where I am in this conversation. You know what I'm saying? As a woman who has a black father, allegedly.
Really? That's what you want to do your dad?
This is why it's a joke. He's real light skinned. And we can talk about colorism tomorrow. He's real light skinned. No. My dad is invisible in the daytime. Like he's clear. Oh, God. So saying that.
If he's clear.
He burns. It's all of it. That's why we talk about colorism tomorrow. But today we're talking about.
It's deep. like the comedy we build. It's in the humor. I mean, this stuff runs deep, man. That's why. Like people are going for the low hanging. Like this conversation.
He's laughing.
I'm trying to be serious.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to be serious. But this conversation is targeted for low-hanging fruit.
It is.
And are we focusing on healing this epidemic, this amplified epidemic that has become, that we've all, not all, because a lot of people are not aware of this conversation, period. There are people in situations where this is far from on their mind. But are we going to take this opportunity and really help young people really understand healthier ways of engaging with one another that are not fit around the gender roles that we were once prescribed? And the other thing we have to call to the carpet is our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors may have engaged in behaviors that are now seen as abusive and unhealthy, but were needed at one point for survival.
Yes.
And still are needed depending on your status and your situation in this society.
Where you are, yes.
So that's
survival
why
techniques.
People need to be a lot more gentle, because I can't stand when I see people attack a young black boy who may have been abandoned, abused, molested, whatever and ever, over-prescribed on meds, and just judge them, lock them up. And I've seen our own people do that. Yeah. That's toxic. That's toxic. And then you have not spoken any love or life into this kid, not taken the time to get to know what's really happening underneath.
Agreed. There's a lot of love that is required in this conversation.
And a lot of patience and grace. But here's the thing. People need to be a lot more gentle, because I can't stand when I see people attack a young black boy who may have been abandoned, abused, molested, whatever and ever, over-prescribed on meds, and just judge them, lock them up. And I've seen our own people do that.
Agreed.
And a lot of patience
and
grace.
But here's the thing. that little boy becomes R. Kelly, because that's what happened to R. Kelly.
Right, he's molested.
Yes.
A lot of people are not talking about
They're not
the
talking
backdrop.
about. They're not.
Backstory's not.
We're not going to talk about R. Kelly, but that's
when I walked in, you were talking about R. Kelly. I had no words. You're talking about R. Kelly now.
I'm taking.
I don't know anything about that man's personal life. I'm not getting into it. You can't win talking about R. Kelly as a black man.
I'm not trying to win. This is not a competition.
I'm just saying.
Listen to what I'm saying.
I have no opinion.
No one's. Thank you. The reason why. Listen, well, Mega, I need you to bring it in.
I'm here. I'm just saying, like it's.
Finish your point.
So my point is this. They unfortunately, we blame the development of the so-called unquote monster on the monster, but we don't look at the environment that they're absorbing the behaviors from. So I think, but stay away from R. Kelly. I ain't even talking about that. That's a whole nother thing. That right there, I'm pretty much on board with a lot.
But see, there's this weird dynamic, because it might not be your fault, but you're still responsible. You get what I mean?
And we're not
we're not teaching folks to be to take full 100% responsibility and control of themselves. And that's a dynamic that needs to be talked to. When we go back to that concept of being spiritually prepared and emotionally prepared, not only to go out in the world, but to be an adult.
Right.
You know, to be accountable, to have these. The reason why I asked you your definition of manhood, and I am so pleasantly, gorgeously surprised at your answers, because I have asked dozens of men that same question, and the inevitable answer is some form of
provision.
Yes, a provider, protector, and whatever the third thing was that I never remember. And it's like those three things. And we call it the man box manual, because it's those three things. And when you think about women, or when I speak to women and ask what womanhood looks like, there's a different answer for every woman. And just like you guys, obviously you've done this work, so you had two different answers, and they were both beautiful.
It's still working.
It's
still working. It's still unlearning.
But that's the whole point.
Yeah.
215-634-8065, 866-361.
We still getting beat up. We get beat up because of the overwhelming majority of folks are operating out of a different definition. I got beat up on the way here.
0900-866-361-0900. Also on, he turned your mic off and you still talking. WURD on the app. We got Just Greg, Will Mega in the studio. My name is Envy McKee, DJ Frosty Phoenix. Get in on this conversation. You're listening to The Lounge. We'll be right back.
Reality check. Reality Check, hosted by Charles Ellison, Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WordRadio.com.
Independence is a precious thing, but now and then everyone needs a little help. Isn't it good to know that getting the help you need doesn't mean drastically changing your life? Always Best Care Philly and Delaware is there to give you just the amount of help you need, from a few hours a week to as many hours as you need, handling everything from light housekeeping to meals, and so much more. Don't struggle. Contact Always Best Care and see how easy it is to age in place. Call us at 267-909-9248 or visit abcphillybristol.com.
Now, with more clarity, this is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com.
Hey, this is Bianca Ingram, and you are listening to The Lounge on Word Radio.
I could wipe them clean, metamorphosis unseen. Stuck between hardships won't last, but those who don't diversify get left behind too fast.
And you know, if I was standing at the beginning of time with the possibility of taking a kind of general and panoramic view of the whole of human history up to now, and the Almighty said to me, which age would you like to live in?
Welcome back to the lounge. Applause or something. Thank you. Thank you. No, I haven't had applause this whole time. I need to hear it. My name is Envy McKee, DJ Frosty Phoenix. You miss me? I did. We have just Greg Corbin in the studio, Will Mega in the studio. We are talking about more than toxic masculinity. I love, behind the scenes, you couldn't hear this unless you're on the Facebook Live, but we were talking behind the scenes about the moments, how toxic masculinity as a catchphrase, and that's supposed to be a catch-all, is actually a trap. But also recognizing how masculinity can be toxic, as in how it infiltrates our relationships and causes us to shut down. It causes a wound that has deep roots, that causes trauma, essentially. It becomes the root of our trauma that we carry around as survival instincts, and how we interact in our relationships based on that wound. It's essentially a form of arrested development. And we know that wherever the trauma is, that's where we stop growing, in that place, until we can, clean that wound and heal and, find something else. Because we got plenty of wounds.
Yeah. Plenty
of traumas. And so we're talking about that. And I love the way Greg put it, but I also wanted to read this quote. This is a quote by Bashar. And it talks about power. You choose at every moment whether to exhibit the idea of power or not. But heed the idea that while you may think that certain actions show power, the true demonstration of power is awareness, compassion, and the lightest possible touch. That which has the greatest power requires the lightest possible touch to get something done. A great deal of pushing comes from those who feel powerless. They feel they must manipulate and push things into the direction they wish them to go. Those who already know they are part of the infinite, those who already know there is no power greater than the one they are already a part of, need not exercise a demonstration, for they know in their allowance all things fall into place. That allowance is the greatest power that can be reflected to anyone else. We have Jacob from Alney on the line.
All right. How you doing, Sister McGee?
I'm good. How you doing?
Oh, I'm blessed. I'm listening to y'all in the lounge there, and it sparked me to call,
Awesome.
You had mentioned earlier, you said divine femininity and divine masculinity, right? And that's exactly what it is. When I was young, I used to hear my mother say that an opinion is like a body part. Everybody got one. And Will Mager would agree with this. There was a jazz musician, Les McCann. He had a song, Trying to Make It Real Compared to What, right? See, we all have an opinion, a type of reality, but what are you comparing what's real to you to, you know? Because Reggie Bryant used to say, it ain't what you know that gets you in trouble, it's what you know that
just ain't so.
Right. So, and that always stuck with me. But when you come from, I've heard women say, well, men and women, they're the same. They're the same thing. No, we're not. The woman is made up different. We don't even have interchangeable body parts. You know what I'm saying? So to say that we're exactly the same, that's not true, right? I don't know whether we look at it. Yes, we're equal before this creator. Yes, we're equal as male and female. Nobody has, I think, a dominant role over the next gender. But at the same time, there is a little difference here, even in body parts. And a lot of times people don't want to bring up that, you know, the fact. I mean, it's a fact. It's a known fact. So it's, again, trying to make what real and what are you comparing it to? You know, because, again, everybody has an opinion. Imagine a world that there's no, no ruler. You know, a carpenter, 12 inches on every ruler is 12 inches, right? So they're comparing their thing to the 12-inch, system, So when I ask people questions, I always ask them, what do you compare your reality to? And a lot of times I find out that, okay, that's why I can't understand what you're saying, But again, we got to have a standard in that. So maybe you could speak to that. But I hear what you're saying. Excellent program. I'm listening. I just had to get that in there. Thank you.
Thank you so abundantly. Thank you so abundantly. Okay, so this conversation is so layered, and it's complicated in that it's complicated in that it's not cut and dry the way we want it to be. And I would love to have Jason chime in. I think that's him. He's been listening all the way from LA. He is a speaker. He's a thought leader, spiritualist. He's a spiritual practitioner at Agape International Spiritual Center. Michael Beckwith. Yes, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. So I would love to have his point of view on this. He's here? Yeah, there you go. Yay, Jason. Thank you so much for coming back in the lounge.
Still getting themselves a little situated.
Oh,
Trying to make sure we hear him clearly.
Can I hear you clearly?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Oh, there he is.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes, it's so good.
Much better.
All right, sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you for being in the lounge.
What's up, Jason?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Hey, MB.
Hi.
How you doing, bro?
I really just want to acknowledge, all the way from L.A., it's great to have this discussion with people who are definitely coming to it with an open mind and having some thoughtfulness around it. I know that a lot of what I'm hearing or reading in the comment section that I know better to stay out of than to dive too deeply into are just charged reactions. So I do want to acknowledge that this is definitely a gathering of brothers who are thoughtful and conscious and doing some work on their own. So that's obvious just in first. I'm streaming on YouTube, so I'm looking at y'all too. So it's just good to connect with you guys. The beauty of what is unfolding for me around an idea that we're calling toxic masculinity, recognizing that toxicity is a modifier on whatever the idea of masculinity is I think more than anything, it's calling us to look at what real masculinity is and to see how differently we define it across cultures, across history, and that our world is changing. More than anything, I'm observing the shift in the limited idea of what's possible. So many people have been raised in communities where there was only one way to be a man. So many people are raised in communities where there are only a couple of options. And the technology that's come through this information age is showing people that there are more options, that there's more ways to look at, well, what does it mean to be a man? There, you know, on my block, you know, where my brothers grew up, actually, not so much me, it was violence, you know, it was drug dealing, it was hustling. Those were the things that the men in that community did. When my father pulled us out of that, we moved to an area where it was completely different, where it's, you know, palm trees and flowers and people mowing their lawns. It's just a different community, and we learned about a different way to be men. The examples were different. And so I'm just in gratitude for a world now that's having different discussions, even if we're not having the discussions well, even if the discussions are messy, even if the discussions are challenging, even if we're getting ideas wrong and maybe we're responding to each other wrong. I think that, as I believe just Greg has talked about multiple times, gets us closer to healing. It gets us closer to addressing the origins of some of the misunderstanding or disagreements, or just the concept that people are saying, you know what, I think there is a better way. I think there is another way that we can show up in the world and share and connect and build community, and whether it's make money, whether it's make art, whether it's make love, whether it's make a family, I think there is a better way. And I think the human culture addressing things like a subject of toxic masculinity is taking that on.
Yes. Yes. So what did you think of the Gillette commercial?
I loved it. I'm actually thrown by the response, because I went to Gillette's Instagram page and went down their page, and I was fascinated by how many people felt attacked. And I think that that's one of the more interesting dynamics right now, is that there are men who feel attacked by a term called toxic masculinity. And I don't know whether to base it in their ability to understand complex terms or not, but there's a significant...
I feel attacked by the term. I do.
There you go.
And let me tell you why. Here's why. Because when we talked about the definition of it and from whence it's come, it completely ignores that me and the rest of these brothers in here have not ever been able to become men. And so now I have a label on me as a black man in a world where I started off at 3/5 of a man. If I ever stood up to protect my family, my testicles are cut off. Over 1/3 of the black men are currently in legal slavery, and my woman is operating out of a dynamic where she's judging me based on another man's definition of manhood, and I've never been able to define myself.
Yeah, I appreciated how you articulated that earlier. And I don't know that you are being labeled that way. Unless somebody has walked up to you and said that to you, I don't take the term applying to me, though I am able to examine how I live my life to check, am I doing any of these things? I don't know how you feel that someone has applied it to you, but that's worth investigating. But
well, the reason why I feel though it's been applied to me is because the majority of people here in this country, black people in this country, have assimilated and are operating out of the paradigm of the white man's mentality. And so they're judging me based on their ruler, but they're not recognizing who I am, from whence I come, and how I got to be here. And so that's why I'm attacked. You're testing me on something that I've never been taught. You're judging me in a courtroom that I've never been in.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
I was going to say, I mean, I guess it's perspective, right? Like anybody could feel attacked. Anybody could see the good in the. I honestly like the commercial, to be honest. I think the only thing I was like a little bit like, oh, I need to see more dark-skinned you know, people in the in there, right? Because that's the people who get attacked. So psychologically, somebody made a choice and didn't include the dark-skinned brother, who unfortunately is seen as the automatic trigger for fear in this country. Because one of the best marketing campaigns that has ever been done is that the darker you are, the more problematic, the more dangerous you are, especially if you're in a male body. It's you know what's funny is I want to put this clearly. I've totally enjoyed the process I've been going through probably the last 16 months of my life. It's been a lot of looking at myself, and I'm truly grateful for every moment to be held in what people call accountable. But I do want to put out that we are at this time where are we holding people accountable in healthy ways also, because shaming is more traumatic to the situation and triggering to the situation. A lot of people that talk about accountability are often the ones not holding themselves accountable or only but dodging the bullets. Like I had one friend who was in a relationship and was jumping around, and you know, I was talking to him and I was like, well, what happened, you know, with the sister? And he was like, well, we had a falling out. And I was like, well, you did kind of, you cheated on your previous girlfriend with the new girl, and then it didn't work out. You're rooted. Your whole relationship was rooted in problematic behaviors, the same ones you want to call people on. So you can't be the pot calling the kettle black. And so when I see the commercial, I laugh because I'm watching a lot of people online. I'm like, everybody got skeletons in their closet. Everybody got some stuff. I'm just a little bit more forthright with mine. I don't mind telling you I grew up, you know, punching walls until probably like my late 30s. Still had issues on where to put my hands, right? Because of frustration. Never put them on somebody, right? But when it came, I'm the dude that would pound the desk, right? And then saying, yo, but what is the trigger? And then so when I was able to go to therapy and do some real work, I'm able to unpack and to say, whoa, there's been an ongoing theme in my life that I've ignored from time to time. Yes, I had to be responsible. Yes, I didn't focus on myself enough. Yes, I was burnt out when these situations happened, but they're also stemming from real talk, situations that I had with my parents growing up. One of them being, true story, I got punched in the street when I was about 7 years old by one of my friends over a football. I got punched. I ran the house and I was crying and I was freaking out. Like, you know, my dad was like, what happened? I was like, so-and-so punched me. And he was like, well, you're going to go back out there and fight him. And so I'm like, no, I don't want to go back out there and fight him. And then my mom was like in the background saying, Greg, stop trying to make him go out there. And my dad was literally trying to push me out there and close the door on me. And when the door closed, it was so terrifying. And so the door, the door opened back up. But that little split second of you're going to go fight, it was so traumatizing. And so when I was growing up, I would get bullied, I would get punched and not do nothing back, and I would come in the house afraid to express that to my father. And instead of expressing it to my father, because I didn't want to be the disappointing son, and then I wouldn't say nothing to my mother also, I'm ending up hitting walls, hitting sheetrock, because when you hit sheetrock, it easily falls apart, so you feel like you have power. And then, you know, I remember one time my dad was like, what is wrong with you? And I still couldn't muster up the courage to say, I'm quote unquote, you know, haven't been performing up to your standards of what you see as manhood or masculinity, right? And so as I got older, I was able to unpack it, but that was just one of the examples in my livelihood that has shown me how relationships can be damaged. Not, you could blame it on toxic masculinity, but just a lack of communication that my fear was causing. In that moment, like, I remember it to the T. Like, but that's one of those examples where the unhealthy behaviors of the past, and I'm growing up in a neighborhood that was at one point deemed as one of the top 5 most dangerous streets in the city.
Wow.
My dad is up there like, no, you got to protect yourself.
Yeah, he was teaching you survival skills.
But my dad, so it's my dad's holding himself accountable. So if I don't teach my son how to survive, how to defend himself when I'm not around, he'll cry to nobody. And at the same time, will be out there available for the prey. So I see both sides of the coin.
For the predators.
For the predators, right? For the predators who are also the prey.
That's true.
Right?
And Jonesy, MV called me this morning, right? And you were on the phone, right, brother? And I was saying to her, as folks are having this conversation around toxic masculinity, right now, like in that moment, my focus was on my son, right? And him and I had a little disagreement yesterday. And I was saying to her, my focus is trying to get him to understand that my sole, well, not just for him to understand, but the fact that my sole role in his life is to prepare him to be able to do for himself, fend for himself, make a way for himself when I'm not here. So when we're talking about a black man in this society, even in dealing with these common national issues and discussions, it's black men on blocks like, if I can't teach my son here on this block to defend himself, what good is it if he makes it or can't make it to college or makes it to college, right? He got to be able to get off the block to get to college.
215.
So those are dynamics we're faced with.
Be able to protect the body that God gave him.
Yeah,
right.
You'll get no argument from me. Jason, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so we got to take this break. We got to pay these bills. When we come back, more of this discussion. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Of course, if you're listening on the app, hi over there in Facebook land, hi on YouTube land. Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to The Lounge. My name is Envy McKee, DJ Frosty Phoenix on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. We'll be right back.
Support independent black media and join the onWURD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
The Mattress Man is a second-generation family business. They're open 7 days a week and are located at 7421 Stedden Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best quality and prices on name-brand mattresses like Sealy, Posturepedic. Mattress Man discounts Serta, Memory Foam, Orthopedic, and Comfortech. Same-day delivery is available on most models to most areas. All of the mattresses are brand new, nothing refurbished. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
WordRadio.com.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Alvin and the Chipmunks want to remind you to keep bacteria in food from making you ill with 4 simple steps.
This will be a walk in the park.
Clean. Wash hands and surfaces often.
I'm waiting for the rinse cycle.
Separate. Keep raw meats away from ready-to-eat foods.
Yep.
Cook. Make sure meat, poultry, and seafood is cooked to the right temperature.
Fire in the hole!
And chill. Refrigerate food promptly.
Bingo!
Check your steps at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council. The road trip to food safety starts at foodsafety.gov.
I'm jumping in with my clothes on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey now, this is Dr. Guthrie Ramsey of Musicology, and you're listening to The Lounge on Word Radio.
What do I do with these feelings? Longing to have you near. Knowing we shouldn't be dealing. Why must the bad things always feel so good? Why can't I just stay away? Though our situation was understood, still does not mean it's okay. Where do we go from here? What do I do with these feelings? Oh, no, 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 no. Longing to have you near. separate ways. This night is done. I'll be wanting to hold on to you again. Wish we could push it all away, 'cause then we know that we can show what we had from the day. Where do we go from here? I need to know, I need to know. What do I do with these feelings? Yeah, yeah. Long as you have you near, baby, you know that when we shouldn't be dealing.
Welcome back to the lounge. 900 AM, 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. My name is Emmy McKee. DJ Frosty Phoenix. This is the place where we have up-leveled progressive conversation. Today we have Just Greg, poet, educator,
writer,
storyteller, documentarian, married man, all of those things.
Yeah, I'm growing. I am
growing, evolving.
I mean it when I say I'm a humanitarian.
Yeah, it's humanitarian.
I think about human beings first. I'm not just a man. I'm a human first.
I love it. We have Will Mega, who is a political strategist. He is the original OG of reality TV. I just gave you another moniker, honey. You're welcome.
I'm just Will.
Okay, he's just Will. You
like that, brother?
Just silly. We also have Jason Mitchell, who is a speaker. He is a prolific. He is a brilliant man. He is an Agape International Spiritual Center spiritual practitioner. He's on the road to being a reverend, if I'm not mistaken.
Congratulations.
He is a counselor.
But today we'll be just Jason.
Yeah, we're all just
I knew he was going to say it.
We're all just. And so this conversation started because of a Gillette commercial. And I thought it would be interesting just to kind of bring some black men in the room and see if we're all kind of on the same page that the commercial was good. But more than that, to define toxic masculinity. But what happened was we unpacked it. Right?
It's a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole, but I feel like this is a seed conversation. This is like a step into the room conversation, because I feel like this is a series. And I feel like if we want to really unpack this in any meaningful way, because you have to name the thing, right? And once you can name
first, you
the
have to define the terms.
Yes.
So you can make sure you're all talking about the same thing.
The same thing, that's right. So we have to name the thing first. And so I feel like this show was the naming. And so the next shows that we will have will be a week, I think. It'll be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll pick, different things and break it down into bite-sized pieces so that we can really... Because the one thing that I don't like about these conversations, and that the reason why I'm in this chair right now is to have different kinds of conversations, is because sometimes we just leave things. We just do the show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We do the show just to have the show. But we don't necessarily use our voice to really impact an evolution of a thing. We just name the thing because it's our job. But this is a calling now, because, the transition is here. We're up-leveling as a culture, as a collective, as a community. And so we have to have different conversations, because we understand that we're creating the world every time we speak. We're creating the world that we're living in every time we use our voices. And so that's why you three are in here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So Shango's on the line. I want to get him in.
Yes. Hotep.
Hotep, brother.
Hotep, brother. Listen, Will Mega is definitely hitting up on something. You cannot have a conversation like this and not have the whole notion of white supremacy at the forefront of it.
Right.
And every area of our lives is controlled and affected by that. We don't have healthy relationships. We don't have economic power. Any of these things we don't have because of white supremacy. We have to deal with that. We have to bang on that as hard as people want to bang on R. Kelly. We have to bang on that 24/7 because that's the root of this. And this whole thing of hypermasculinity, like Neely Full says, the supremacists are always marching out some new phrase, a new term, a new world, or new phrase for us to try to define. And when we try to define it, the supremacist didn't know what he meant when he said it. That's why he marched out there, to cause confusion. Now, to me, if you peel the onion, this whole term of hypermasculinity came about from the alphabet mafia, who was trying to use this as...
Whoa. The who?
The alphabet mafia.
The alphabet mafia?
Yes.
What is that?
What is it? LGBT.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Sean. Go for your call.
Why, you hung up on the man?
Yes. No. We don't do intolerance in this show. Sorry, baby.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you for calling, though.
Interesting. So how's that work? So one group can have their opinion, and can be critical of the other, but the other group can have their opinion. White supremacy.
Listen. The man was no, just no. All the no's.
Know. I'm just
all the no's. Okay.
You don't have to necessarily be rude to acknowledge the legitimacy of a group.
Right. And the fact that I had to ask what it was.
I don't know. I'm just listening.
And you seemed like you knew what it was.
No, I didn't. Nope.
I had no idea.
I didn't say. I didn't know. No. I didn't.
No.
I'm just listening.
You knew what it was?
I heard that before.
No,
oh, wow.
We're not doing that.
Only mafia I've heard is a junior black mafia.
Let me keep it really gully, if I shall, Bucks County style, right? Mm-hmm. We don't do intolerance. There are ways that you can express yourself without being insulting to entire groups of people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree with that 100%.
And so we're not doing that on this show. So if that is your steez, that's great, but we're not doing it here.
But this is what I think. This is what I think you missed. I think you missed a great opportunity to help him grow.
We're talking about
because
and
Greg
that was a great example.
Just talked about if you get shut down,
right,
when you're expressing yourself, then you go
it's
back.
Oppression.
See, and so we lose. So you know what I did mention. I've been an educator for 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. Conflict resolution is something I have to do all the time, right?
I get it.
And
I get it.
No, and I'm not saying.
But we're on the air, and we have a show deadline. So it is not my job as a black woman to teach another. Listen to what I'm saying. To teach another man how to express himself without being insulting to someone. That's not my role. So if he wants
to go back and listen to what you said 3 minutes before
behind the scenes, if he wants to, we can do that later. But we have on a times constraint.
All right. Okay.
You're not gonna be in here and schooling me on my show. What you think this is? Some crayons?
I told you. I'm
just playing. Go ahead.
The conversation around, like, you know, when you do start talking about things that are sensitive, like the LGBTQIA movement. And like
it's not a movement; these are people.
No, I'm talking about what he was going after with the movement part.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, there are people. Gender, sexuality, all these things can be fluid. That is true.
Yes.
And I think it's in India. It's three genders.
There are lots of cultures where there are 3 genders.
7 genders altogether, and so we're living under the guise. When we talk about the system of what we would say white hetero patriarchy,
right?
Normative.
You're right.
Everything.
There's lots of lingos. It's
that's
complicated.
What I'm saying. So now the conflict now is more language based now.
Yeah.
And so there are things that are happening. Those who can control the constitute of the Constitution that's being engaged within said conversations are usually the people who will win.
Remember when I told you, Greg, when we were at the funeral, he who prescribes the diameter of your learning experience controls the circumference of your activity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh, no, we were talking about constant elevation causes
what you say,
expansion.
Jason?
But what goes in there is that if we leave it there and not expand his ability to see the larger narrative, he's still there.
Okay. And you're right. Absolutely. Learning moment. Thank you.
You must have went to Hampton.
I did.
You must have went.
Like I said, I'm a humanitarian.
Right.
Yeah, that was like an uppity Hampton response. I'm going to keep it straight LU
Well, Jason went to FAMU, so we got HBCU Connect all up in
I went to LU.
Lincoln.
Let's go.
Lincoln.
Double L-U over
Both
here.
of you went to Lincoln?
Yes.
Now
Oh,
what?
wow. This is so dope.
Now
Lincoln.
what?
HBCU thick in here.
For real.
That's love.
But as far as like I'm a humanitarian, and I love. For me, I love all people, and that, to me, I've evolved to the place because and I think it's funny like the Kevin Hart thing is really interesting because it's like we all grew up in a time where things that are not acceptable now were unfortunately normalized or just went under the carpet or just unacknowledged. And so this idea of going back 20 years to persecute people or 10 years or whatever.
Yeah,
that's when it gets
crazy.
That's when it's like, no, like just say, yo, what you did was wrong. If the person apologizes, let it be. And if you want to monitor their behavior and be the police around their behavior, that's on you. But at the end of the day, I think we're killing grace. We're killing the concept of grace.
I'm going to agree
We're killing
with you
the
there.
concept of redemption. We're killing the concept of forgiveness. We are killing the concept in the things that are acts of love. Love takes those things and more. Love is a patient. It's that light touch that you read in that quote that Bashar was talking about. Love is a power because it does not have to prove its power. There are moments when I definitely thought I had to prove my power because the way I was taught that power worked, and me being in the body of a black male, that can easily be seen as toxic masculinity or said hyper masculinity. But the way I was taught, which comes through a white supremacy lens, thinking about the dehumanization of said body from 400 plus years ago, we keep forgetting. We're leaving out this whole history piece. This I get it. We in this moment, a lot of people lead in these movements, these moments, these charges that are sometimes emotionally based and not really placed in logic or practicality, really miss the mark. Because what happens is you can't come up with tangible solutions because you're not thinking about the past, how that influences the present, and therefore how we can all together build a better future.
But then also, you also have to remember that these are broad strokes. And in order to have these conversations,
this is what we should be doing. Dialogue. Dialogue.
It's complicated to have these broad stroke conversations when everything is a nuance. Like your experience as a black man is different than your experience as a black man, which is different than you, which is what what we were talking about last night. It's based, what we bring to the conversation is what we see in the mirror. And so each and every one of our experiences, you know, that's our work to do. What we see in the mirror, how we came here, that's our work to do.
And we're changing. Like we're changing, and we, you know, and we've had our talks like on the whole spiritual side of how this is moving, the vibration is picking up, the earth is spinning faster, things feel like it's moving quicker, the change is more rapid. You have the information on the ground that's causing people to trigger change quicker. And for people who live in a world that once moved slower, it's uncomfortable, a lot more uncomfortable than people who can move faster and change quicker, i.e. younger generations, because they're more digitally engaged and more raised and conditioned on that versus a generation that memorizing phone numbers. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it needs to be more intergenerational conversations, more patience and humility in those conversations, and less trophy getting. Everybody's trying to win an argument. Let's grow. This ain't about winning. We're all losing. We're all suffering. Men are hurting. Women are hurting. My non-gender conforming folk are hurting. Everybody is hurting. There is a lot of suffering happening. And that is one of the reasons why I took my butt to therapy, because for years I was so numb to my hurting, to my pain and my suffering, that I thought it was normal to feel how I was feeling. I didn't even know I was depressed because I was covering it up with workaholic tendencies. But you know what? My father taught me that indirectly, because I think there were moments when my father was depressed, but he took it out with cigarettes, and he worked triple overtimes, quadruple overtimes to cover up the hurt, because provision made him feel good about being an adult, being a man. And so when I think about some of the things I took, my dad literally died of stage 4 lung cancer in 2002. I believe my father truly worked himself to death. I really do. And I was on the same path until I had a couple experiences where I had to stop and look in the mirror and be like, what are you doing? The sentence, the last 2 minutes I've just explained, I would have never said that a year and a half ago. What I just said about my father is an experience and an epiphany that I had sitting in the office of a therapist. And I was like, oh my God, like I've absorbed my father's behaviors and championed them. Because provision, my dad grew up in that moment when provision was seen as instant masculinity or instant manhood. Can I provide? Not about my behaviors, not if I cheated on somebody. Can I protect, right?
And what was the third one?
Was it preserve? Protect, provide, and
preserve would be legacy.
Oh, right.
Protect, provide, and
so,
preserve.
215-634-8065. We have to pay these bills. 866-361-0900. You are listening to The Lounge. This is WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM. I'm Envy McKee, Frosty Phoenix, Just Greg, Will Mega, Jason Mitchell. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about therapy when we come back, because I think that's a powerful component and a great way to cap this seed conversation up. Okay? We'll be right back.
Listen to Word Radio on the go with the Word Radio app. Search for WURD in your favorite app store today and take us with you wherever you go. Stay connected to Word Radio, independent black media.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent black media.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
What's going on? This is Asher Roth, and you're listening to The Lounge on Word Radio.
And I got all of the sadness, and you end up with all the laughter. I play by the rules and I treat you right, but you get the last laugh every fight. Now tell me, baby, do that sound right? Sound right, sound right. I can't blame it on love, no. It's common sense, it plays its part. I can't blame it on you, no. 'Cause you don't know my heart. Can't blame it on her, yeah. She can't be that smart. Messing with you, she gon' get a broken heart. So what if, what if, what if? Yeah. Ooh. See, every time I try to leave, you think of new reasons on why I should stay. And every time I tell you no, I can't believe you're still getting mad. 'Cause I won't give you your way, and it don't hurt no more. When I see you with that other, and lately you cry, and I don't know why, and I can't understand it. Can't blame it on love. It's common sense, it plays its part. I can't blame it on you.
2 hours is too short. It's too short. We needed that third hour.
But it was a good conversation about finances in.
No, it's
in the
amazing.
nation.
That was an
Yeah.
amazing conversation. Welcome back to the lounge. Ooh, there's some. Welcome back to. Oh, okay. Welcome back to the lounge. Envy McKee, DJ Frosty Phoenix, aka Eric Nixon, in the building. We have Just Greg, Will Mega, Jason Mitchell, and now Albert Butler in the conversation. Hello, fellas. We got LA. This is like the Philly LA Connect. All HBCUs. We got 3 Hampton, 2 Lincoln, and 1 FAMU.
That's nice.
That's amazing.
Same system got our money.
What'd you say?
Same system got our money, though.
Right. And interestingly, before the break, we were talking about was provide, protect, and Jason gave us the third word. It's profess, and I still don't understand exactly what that means, but
profess is just declaring who your woman is.
Oh, that's right.
Them saying that, you know, the whole idea around saying this is my girlfriend, this is my woman, this is my partner on the journey, and speaking that into existence as opposed to, you know, she's with me.
Damn.
Okay. Which sounds really toxically masculine, doesn't it? Since we're talking about toxic masculinity.
Or the, like, that's my girlfriend.
That's
like
mine.
Ownership.
It's ownership. Exactly.
I remember
exactly.
I asked my wife, I said, so what do I call you? Like, I don't want to say my because I don't own you. I remember
right. How did you work that out?
Said, do you own your parents?
She said, I ain't thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. You own your parents. She said that's my parents. So that's what happens when we get too caught up in
semantics.
Yes, stop it now. Don't. That's my brother. That's my sister. That's gonna be my wife. I'm not getting caught up in that nonsense, because if I don't say she's my wife from where I'm from, well, you ain't say that was your girl, so it must be all good. You better claim yours, black man.
There's so many layers.
I'm just letting you know.
There's
you
so
better
many
claim yours.
layers because you want to be respectful of someone's whole personhood.
Right, but claiming
and
her, when you claim her, you are saying, you're not saying that I own you. You are saying that I acknowledge you.
But if we are acknowledging that the history of what happened with women was that they were passed from parent to husband, it wasn't ownership.
And whose history?
Listen, honey, the history of on this planet. In this country, where we all grew up, that's history.
My mother wasn't passed to my father. They met one another at a high school dance.
Okay.
Said my mom. Wait,
you know what I mean?
People online?
Listen. We're talking. The conversation is about toxic masculinity.
Come on, y'all.
I think, if anything, if you want to talk about predicates and my and
Albert, do you have thoughts on this topic?
What's up, Al?
What's up, Al?
Hey, Al.
I was looking forward to seeing you, Al.
I know.
Yeah.
Work.
Trapped at work.
I was just upset that I couldn't see you at a dinner.
Provide, got him. Provide,
provision, got him.
That's right.
You got a tight deadline coming up, and so some things were required, so I had to stay a little later than I wanted to. I was hoping to be in the studio. Actually, I don't have a lot to add. I just wanted to call in and kind of show my support for my sister, Envy.
Thank you, brother.
And, you know, I appreciate my brothers there and on the phone. And I appreciate the conversation that you're having. And I'm glad that this is, you know, put together by Hamptonians.
Yes.
And everything.
Whoop, whoop.
But no,
word to Harvey.
The only one little thing I guess I can add that hasn't, at least I haven't heard since I've been listening. I've been listening probably since about 8:15. Mm-hmm. Is a piece on when it comes to, I think sometimes people, and like my man said, Jay said, going through some of the comments, I didn't do it on Instagram. I kind of been doing it on Twitter, but the same kind of responses, and I think people get their back up real quick. It's interesting to see why people get so sensitive about some of the, and why they think it's directed at them, whether it is or isn't. But one of the things I think gets confused in the conversation is the idea that teaching something that we have traditionally taught to our boys and young men means that isn't inherently toxic. And I don't think that's the case. I think someone like myself, my father taught me ways to defend myself physically and verbally as I was growing up, and he showed me examples through his walk of ways that I could defend myself and hold my space as a human being. And nothing has equipped me better to stand up for other people than being able to have the strength of my own conviction to stand up for myself. And it's one of the reasons why I went to an HBCU. People used to say, well, if you go to HBCU, how are you going to be able to navigate a white world? It's like, nothing makes me more prepared to navigate the white world than being rooted strongly that I'm a strong black man. And so, to me, the same kinds of things talk about masculinity is if I know that I can defend and take care of myself and I know the right ways to treat other people, then I can in turn feel empowered to protect other people and stand in the ways of folks who would do harm, and then also maybe find moments to teach others who didn't learn what I learned. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in agreement. Ideally, we would like to live in a world where we didn't need to defend ourselves. Right.
Yeah,
ideally, we would come into such a balance, that we don't need to walk the planet worrying about if my car gets broken into, you know what I'm saying, if my person is going to be harmed.
That's a type of defending myself, right? But little things happen all the time. You know, we know the term now has been become common use as microaggression. So it doesn't always have to be that I got to square up with someone in the street because they did something.
The clapback culture.
Sometimes it's just simply standing up to your supervisor saying, what you're doing to me, the way you're treating me versus the other employees isn't right. Sometimes it's standing up to an employer in general and saying, hey, the rules that you have for your employees are unfair, and we need a more balanced system. Whether it's standing up to your government and saying what you're doing to us is not fair, and we need to change. Like, teaching someone to defend themselves isn't about fights and, you know, deflecting and defending fights. It's well, physical fights always. It can be about all kinds of fights. And I think a lot of times, like what Greg mentioned earlier, is that a lesson he learned early in life taught him to not face up to some of those challenges he was getting. What if he had been armed with the ability to use his words, and if it came to it, defend himself, but to use his words to say, what you said was messed up. This is why it was messed up. It shouldn't have come to this. Tell an adult that, so an adult can help them mediate and help them give them words that they don't know how to give words to themselves because they're too young. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, being able to defend yourself is paramount.
I mean, I haven't been doing conflict resolution in a formal sense like Will has done, but I've done conflict resolution because I used to referee intramurals at Hampton, and I used to be a RA, and I coached track and field. So I've had my own interactions with conflict resolution, and there are many people, and I have to count some of my family members in this because I've had issues with my sister early in her life as a young teenager, where she didn't have the words to put on her pain, and so she would lash out by throwing things. And so she had to learn a new way to handle what she was feeling inside by, one, as you guys said, naming it, defining it, and then figuring out ways to address it when it came up in the future. And she, you know, she's a full-grown woman and a flourishing adult now, but that was something she had to get over. And at the time, she was dating a young man who was similar. So they never put their hands on each other, but they would just pick things up and throw things near each other or around each other or slam doors. And that, you know, and that's one of those things that has to be unlearned. Yeah. And we, as adults, I mean, as humans, sometimes younger humans and older humans, we have the ability to unlearn anything that's been taught to us, whether it's been placed to us as systemic, like, you know, source white supremacy, or whether it's something that's from our own toxic family. A lot of times we've grown up in toxic families and we've learned horrible lessons, and we have the ability to unlearn that. But we can't unlearn that until we have the realization that what we're doing is actually wrong.
That's right.
And I bring it full circle. That's why I think the Gillette commercial is so good. Yeah. Because I think for a lot of people who watch that, it's like, wait a second, that's not something I should do. Maybe they see that in the first time. That's the first time they see in the light. But that's not something that is appropriate behavior.
Okay. Well, thank you, Albert, for that. We have to wrap up. 2 hours is not enough time for this conversation. So, you know, I'm here for the rest of the week, but we're not going to... We have to do a part 2. We have to do a part 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I'll come back.
Okay.
I'll come back.
So
can I say something?
You can. Everybody's going to get a minute.
Okay.
And you'll also be able to plug whatever you're into. A minute. 30 seconds. So, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show once again. I think you are a brilliant voice, and I can't wait to continue, you know, to have you on and amplify your work and all of that stuff. So, any final thoughts?
So thank you. You can find me online at Conscious Lens on Instagram, or just my name, Jason D. Mitchell, on Facebook. More than anything, I want us to keep talking. I want us to keep sharing ideas, and I want us to create spaces that are safe to do so. safe for people who may not have popular opinions, but who are willing and open to grow and to become their best selves. And that is the point of the art of the commercial. Is how can men be our best? And that can be talked about through ripping off the veil of white supremacy, thrown off gender dynamics, thrown off all kinds of cultural ideas, and actually decide what is my best, Will's best, any of ours best as a man, and any other way. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your words.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Will Mecca.
Hey, I just want to thank all of you, and especially Greg. I've been actually listening to him and texting my son throughout this conversation, kind of working through our little issue. Right?
Nice.
And so that's good. And, you know, for those who are interested in hearing more of what I have to say, you can go to my website, www.willmegaspeaks.com. And lastly, here in the city of Philadelphia, and I got to do my politics, 17,000 racially stopped and frisked in 2017 by the guy who promised us he was going to end stop and frisk. Something got to change.
And Greg?
If you want to reach me, I am at Greg Corbin Speaks, GregCorbin SPEAKS at Gmail, or you can use Greg Corbin Speaks at Instagram. Inbox me on Facebook at Greg Corbin. The thing I wanted to just plug and let people know, I'm constantly working on programming around youth. I'm really focusing on boys and young men of color, and putting together some programs that I'm already doing in a few schools around emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, internal conflict resolution, which is pretty much mindfulness, and teaching young men how to have conversation and practice dialogue. When dialogue dies, we lose the ability to really commune and build community.
Yes.
And so you can have all the digital spaces you want, but if you can't have a face-to-face conversation, there's going to be some trouble in the future. And right now,
my boot off.
I foresee a world that's very interesting. And so those are the things I'm really working on. I also do men's circles and putting together some curriculums around that too. We realize like the women have their safe spaces.
Yeah.
But men need spaces to operate and have their opinions heard, whether it's popular or not. It's that simple, because you can't keep repressing people for the sake of your own justice. And this is the last thing I'll say. The thing that I think scares me the most is the people who often want justice may be building the prisons they're trying to avoid. And I always hold myself to that same standard. Am I imprisoning someone else's freedom? And I look at that intentionally all the time. And so there has to be healthy ways to liberate us all without replicating forms of oppression.
What about you, Eric?
I have not been able to formulate enough in this conversation to form a solid thought in just one session. But we do have to go, though. So
we do have to go, and we need to talk about therapy in this particular lens under the guises of this as well. So food for thought for next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, all of you. Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope. What's the other thing? Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. We're talking about colorism. We're bringing the ladies in tomorrow. So we had the gentlemen in today. Tomorrow will be the ladies. And we're going to talk about colorism in our community based off of the Blackish show that happened last night. So if you have a story, get it all ready to go, because we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming into the lounge. Tip your bartender. Last call's already happened. It's time to go. On behalf of Frosty Phoenix and I, thank you for tuning in to WURD 900 AM, 96.1 FM. Good night.
Brothers and sisters!
Don't miss The Source.
Weekdays 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
on WURD Radio.
WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Philadelphia, get ready for the musical phenomenon that's sweeping the nation. Drumline Live, a show-stopping attraction created by the musical team behind the hit movies Drumline and Drumline: A New Beat. Backed by popular demand, Drumline Live features the best of historically black college and university marching bands and will have your entire family on their feet by halftime. This brand new show is in Philadelphia for 2 performances only, January 19th and 20th. Tickets at kimmelcenter.org.
Since 1904, Philly's top sandwich pros and homemakers have always started the exact same way, with those legendary Amoroso's rolls baked fresh daily. Word family, put Amoroso's rolls on your shopping list for your kids' school lunches and your next family gathering. Want to make your very best sandwiches? Always start with the very best sandwich rolls. Pick them up today at your favorite supermarket or food store. Amoroso's, why Philly's sandwiches are world famous.
Drive in with the rapping professor,
Dr. Aaron Smith.
Drive home
with Charles Ellison.
This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM
and 900 AM WURD.
Philadelphia, independent black media. This program is pre-recorded. Please disregard all dates, times, and events given. No phone calls, please. Remember to keep your dial locked to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
When I wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes, and something without warning, love, bears heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, when someone else instead of me.
Hello, lovely people. It is January 16th, 2019. A lot to get to today. This is not the rapping professor, Aaron Smith. This is Malcolm Burnley filling in. We do still have Queen Coesa, the super producer, pushing the ones and twos. And we got a lot to get to. I don't know if the mic picks that up, but those are my notes. Those are the stories that we have to get to. Let's see, what's new today? Gillette. People are angry with Gillette. The PPA is apparently ticketing people for street sweeping, which I was not aware that Philadelphia actually still had street sweeping. We have a new attorney general who kind of looks like Steve Bannon, and he seems to be kind of the JV version of Jeff Sessions. And we got a wonderful lineup of guests to get to today. So we're going to be talking once again at 8:25 with Mary Catherine Roper of the ACLU of Pennsylvania. So we're going to get into some of this conversation, which has been percolating for about a month now, ever since Mark Lamont Hill, Philadelphia's own Mark Lamont Hill, was fired as a CNN commentator over some of the views he expressed at the UN regarding Israel. So we're going to get into some of the conversation around the BDS movement, which is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, and some of the controversy, I guess, swirling around that, and the free speech and, I guess, the right to boycott that the ACLU is trying to defend, not only with Mark Lamont Hill, but with a number of individuals who are supporting the BDS movement. So we're going to get into that at 8:25. Also at 9:25, we're going to talk a little entertainment news with Amira Smith, who is the Director of Marketing and Multicultural Affairs for the Greater Philadelphia Film Office. She's going to join us, and we're going to discuss black women and also just women in Hollywood today. This has been a big year for black films. It's actually, 2019. Whoa. I got to take a step back here.
I know, right?
last year was a big year for black films. Hopefully this year will be too. But we had Black Panther, we had Green Book. You know, all the award ceremonies are coming out, so there's a lot of attention around black films. But there's been a real void and lack of black women representation completely in the directing and producing end of Hollywood. So we're going to get into some of that conversation and talk a little bit about, I guess, kind of the repercussions or some of the progress made since Oscars, hashtag Oscars so white. So get into some of that. And like I said, we got a lot of local and national news. Kwesa, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm good to fill in. I mean, it's a big, you know, it's big. I was going to say big shoes, but I guess big seat to fill into.
Yeah, big seat. But it's always good to see you. It's always good to have you, you know, on the mic. So I'm excited. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good show. So throughout the show, as you know, the hotline is 215-634-8065. Anything that catches your mind from, like I said, the PPA to this new Attorney General to the ongoing Russia investigation, especially want to get your thoughts on anything local regarding Mark Lamont Hill, especially that you want me to ask to the ACLU. We'd love to get your thoughts on that. So 215-634-8065. It's 707. So there was this new Attorney General testimony yesterday, which it's hard to keep up these days with all the people interviewing for all the Trump positions, all the vacancies. I was struck by just how much this guy looked like Steve Bannon. I couldn't get over this. I mean, he looked just like, it was like Steve Bannon when what's that movie, Minority Report, when they, do you ever see that where they changed the faces?
Yeah.
Like, you know, they try to stretch your face out to give you a new identity, and it looked like Steve Bannon was trying to slip back into the Trump administration, get the back door to the White House. And also, it was just funny. I mean, this guy really seemed like he didn't want the job. So I should also identify who he is. His name is William Barr. He was a former Attorney General under the George H.W. Bush administration in the early 90s. So, you know, that was a time during the crack epidemic. That was a time, you know, when a lot of these mass incarceration policies were getting passed and promoted, the super predators, everything like that. This was a guy for 2 years leading the Justice Department during that time. So we have to be aware of, you know, who he is and what he represents. But at the same time, it was funny because he seemed, compared to, you know, Jeff Sessions and compared to a lot of these other officials, talking about Brett Kavanaugh, these confirmation hearings, he actually sounded, I shouldn't say reasonable, but he sounded like, you know, somewhat moderate, which was crazy to consider what we've been dealing with over the last few years. So I was keeping a close eye on that. Like I said, people are all up in arms about anger from R. Kelly is now transferred to Gillette, the shaving brand, and there's a new commercial out that's getting people very, very up in arms. My personal take is, if you're really upset and you really want to boycott, don't watch the commercial, don't talk about it. But I'm sure we're going to have some people calling in at 215-634-8065, sharing their feelings about this new Gillette controversy out there. So we are, another story that we are monitoring this morning, and should we get into maybe a little news you can use?
Yeah, we can do a little news you can use. Let me hit this liner real quick, and then we'll get right into it, okay? Or maybe not. Maybe it won't play.
I can just...
News you can use right now on Wake Up with Word.
I'm sorry.
No, there we go. You know, the sun's just coming up over Philly now. People opening their eyes, waking up. It's a great drop.
Yeah. Shout out to Khalifa.
Always.
Producing that. Anyway.
News you can use, January 16th, 2019. So the first story we got up is the House rejects white supremacy, white nationalism after Steve King's comments. So, just hours after Republican leadership announced that Republican Representative Steve King of Iowa wouldn't be seated on any committees this Congress because of recent racist comments he made. There is growing pressure for the congressman to resign, though Republicans are still far from being united around that idea. The House, by a vote of 424-1, approved Tuesday afternoon a resolution rejecting white supremacy and white nationalism after King made racist comments in the New York Times in a story published last week. Democratic Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois voted against the resolution because he said it does not go far enough. Rush has introduced his own censure resolution, which represents a stronger rebuke specifically focused on King. King was among those who voted for the resolution, which was inspired by it. So he voted for the own resolution to rebuke his own comments, basically.
Basically.
Huh. So King was among those who voted for the resolution, which was inspired by his comments, saying on the House floor he agrees, quote, with the language in it, end quote, referring to the part condemning white supremacy and white nationalism. One more quote from King. I can tell you this, that ideology never shows up in my head. I don't know how it could possibly come out of my mouth, end quote, King said. However, King tweeted Monday that he believes that the decision to remove him from committees was a political one. King refused to answer questions from reporters Tuesday morning about whether he'd consider resigning. King on Friday said he regretted the, quote, heartburn, end quote, his comments had caused his district, but he has not apologized and said his comments published last week by the New York Times have been mischaracterized. Comments he repeated Tuesday. This dude...
I don't see what's funny. I think the reason that he voted for this is because he doesn't think that what he said was racist.
Oh, so he's just like, yeah, I'm on board. Yeah. Wait, so he's like, I'm down with the cause, like anti-racism,
basically,
and doesn't realize that he's the problem.
Yeah, he's part of the problem. So so I think with this particular bill that was put forth. It was, yes, inspired by his comments, but it was already something that was kind of on the table, but he voted for it. And so, I mean, kudos to him, but at the same time, like... I
mean, this guy's been problematic for a long time.
A very long time.
It seems like he's one of those guys that's just, these firebrands that's out there just to make a name for himself. And now that he's out there, now he's trying to walk it back. That's actually hilarious to me. That I love that take, that basically he's a kid who has no idea that like the class is talking about him, basically, and he's not paying attention enough, so they ask for a vote in the class as to like whether to kick him out, basically, and everyone raises their hand, including him, and then he's out. But apparently he's not out, which is unfortunate, but we'll see where that goes. Another note on this though, these resolutions, I mean, I guess on the one hand, it's cool that Congress is passing a resolution condemning white nationalism, white supremacy, obviously. But at the same time, man, these like honorary resolutions, these resolutions that just mean nothing. I don't know how much. We had Gritty when we had City Hall. They passed like the resolution like welcoming Gritty to the city, and everyone loved it. And I don't know about this. Don't they have more to do?
I think also, I kind of feel the same way that you do. Yeah, they're going to be passing these resolutions, but if in fact, we're still seeing black and brown people getting shot up and killed out on the street, and even, the person who's leading this country is not really fully condemning racist rhetoric and white supremacy, I don't think that we're going to see that much of a change, so just because you put some ink to paper doesn't mean that the mentality of people living in the country is going to change. So I don't